Hey, welcome back. It's a Thirsty Thursday edition of Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. If you don't know, now you know. I'm John Tobacco. We're in the Newsmax headquarters, high atop Midtown Manhattan, every single day. And before each segment, I like to give you a little highlight about what's going on in the markets today. The Dow Jones is having a nice rebound day, up 100. Bitcoin down a few hundred. And as I mentioned in an abbreviated set of opening remarks that I think 10,000 is a turning point for Bitcoin. Right now it's trading just under that, so there could be a trapdoor here and the thing could drop quick to 8,500 or so. But if it comes through this level with any sort of velocity, it could be on its way to 11,000 because people start to get the FOMO, the fear of missing out. And I personally have stuck my big toe in the water and established a long position in Bitcoin. I think it may go higher from here, but do not take any financial advice from me. Now, political advice, you tune in every day to talk to the people who are purple, who can have a conversation with the other side and not think that everything they say is wrong. We call it Mix It Up because we bring on a Democrat, a Republican throughout the topics of the day. I sit back and mix up a drink. They duke it out. At the end, we part friends. And joining me today, as he has many times before, on the right, I have Bill Cortese. He is a Republican consultant. He's a Marine veteran and one of the finer guests who we've had on our show. And also joining us today on the blue side, it's Laura Fink. She's also been on the show with us many, many times, and at least a few times. And I want to thank you both for joining us for a Liquid Lunch. Frankie's there. There's new polling out on Trump's approval ratings. I've said for a while, and Frankie, we talk about it all the time, these polls this far out are crap as far as I'm concerned. But Bill, what say you? And we'll see what Laura thinks also.
Well, I think it's important to remember that polls are just a snapshot in time, right? These things are going to change. There's still a lot of time left on the clock. And so what's interesting is that you still see Trump floating in the low 40s right now. It's comparable to some of the other presidents that have run incumbents. But I think what's interesting is when you look at the approval ratings for Trump amongst Republicans and amongst Democrats. He has a 5% approval rating amongst Democrats, and I believe a 92% approval rating amongst Republicans. So that berth is the widest they've ever had in terms of recording on the Gallup. George W. Bush had something similar, but I think that's an interesting piece of information that I pulled from the Gallup poll here. So,
Laura, are those secret Trump voters still out there that were overlooked by every pollster?
Well, I think the Bradley effect that you're referring to, where people aren't necessarily telling the truth of about who they're supporting to the pollsters, or the pollsters maybe doing the targeting a little bit wrong on the turnout, is definitely, it's still a variable that we have to consider. I do agree that the polarization, record high polarization with Democrats being anti-Trump, Republicans being pro-Trump, we haven't seen that before. But what I'd like to drill down on, and I didn't see these numbers, but I'm curious about the independents, because Trump traditionally has lost independents, which accounts for his approval rating, being at 43, being at 39. And those independents are going to be critical come election time. The other poll that I looked at was a Fox News poll that's out today that shows Joe Biden beating him by 13, Bernie Sanders beating him by just under 10, Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris also beating him by multiple points. That snapshot to me, when you compare him not to the almighty but to the alternative, shows that Democrats, all of the top Democrats, are leading him. That should be a poll that he should be concerned about. And does this, polarization that he's been driving since the advent of his presidency serve him in his reelection? It remains to be seen. But my thoughts are no.
Frankie, yesterday, speaking of polling, yesterday when we were on air, you were reporting that in Israel, Bibi Netanyahu was trailing in the exit polls, and it winds up that he wins.
It does?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's quite a bit of breaking news there.
Well, he offered to do a coalition. Well, he leads. Is that better?
I don't think so. But,
well, that's what I just read in the elevator on my way up on the digital board.
So it appears that the best that he could hope for at this point is a shared government with his opposition, the Blue and White Party. Yes. What does this mean for America and the United States? This is what President Trump said about the Israeli elections yesterday.
Have you spoken to Netanyahu?
I have not.
What? Why?
Those results are coming in, and it's very close. Do you have any updates? Any updates? Because you people usually should know before the president.
Are you suspicious at all about the results?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Everybody knew it's going to be very close, and we'll see what happens. And look, our relationship is with Israel. We'll see what happens.
Bill, you've worked in Israeli politics, I think on behalf of the Likud party and Netanyahu. How do you see this whole thing playing out?
I was there in April for the first election, and we almost wind up in the same place. But what people need to understand are a few things. There is no left in Israel. There is basically a spectrum of conservatives on the right, more of your more moderates, and those represented by blue and white, Benny Gantz and Bibi Netanyahu, which is a little further to the right. They have been in negotiations and have going back and forth about reaching building a coalition government there. But the truth is, whether it's Bibi who pulls this off or whether it's Benny Gantz, the truth is the policies probably aren't going to change that much. So I hate to dismay some of my Democratic friends here. I don't think you're going to see, if you see a Prime Minister, Benny Gantz, that you're going to see much change in the policies that Bibi has already put forward.
Laura, do you tend to disagree?
Well, I think we have to wait and see. I don't disagree that there is no left in Israeli politics, or that the left is substantially weakened in the politics. But I do think that the only Bibi, going from only Bibi to by Bibi, is a drastic change. Remember, this is his top lieutenant that will be taking the helm. And I'm seeing different news come out about whether it's going to be coalition or whether Bibi will, in fact, Netanyahu will be indicted on corruption charges, which is a sea change in Israeli politics. The question becomes, do they want to continue with this hard right stance, with this aggressive move into the Palestinian territories, which really does not bode well for any sort of peace talks or even ceasefires? And I think we have to look at that as being problematic. And remember, this is Netanyahu rule for quite some time. So there is going to be a change in tone, a change in leadership, and definitely a change in policy. We'll see how far that goes. But I do think that this is pretty landmark, not just because we would likely have a new leader in power in Israel for the first time in some time, but also because of the indictment on corruption charges that now Netanyahu will have to face.
So, final topic I want to get you guys' views on is this this revolving door of breaking news on Iran. You think we're bolting out last minute? You think we're bolting out, Bill? Even though Iran is getting aggressive with Saudi Arabia, you think we're bolting out? Trump will come to the table with Iran?
I mean, I think he's been very open that he does want to come to the table with Iran. But as Iran kind of makes their moves away from the table and continues to kind of ratchet up this pressure, and the latest being the attack on the oil refineries in Saudi Arabia, I think this is just a move from their part to gain more leverage in talks with the president if and when they get to that point.
Great. Laura, your thoughts?
I really think we could use General James Mattis, who resigned because he was not being listened to in the Trump administration. His experience and the experience of many others who have not been able to be heard and have left the Trump administration. And this Iran conflict, we've seen things ratchet up, and now we're taking direction from Saudi Arabia, waiting for them to tell us what to do. I mean, that really is troubling that we're ceding that authority to Saudi Arabia. Now, making sure trying to find stability in the region is the goal. We've seen it go in the opposite direction with the change in policy since Trump has come into office. That instability is dangerous no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on. I can only hope that some foreign policy experts and some defense experts get in there and get Trump's ear, because so far he hasn't been listening to them.
Okay, well, it's difficult for the left to even give him credit for anything, but we got rid of a hawk, and that's good news. And it's always painful, but we have to get rid of Bill Cortese and Laura Fink right now. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Thank you both for joining us on Liquid Lunch. We'll be back right after this.